think at that time, my vision was that the Black Cultural Resources Center would be validating scholarship about African Americans or directed by African Americans, focused on African Americans and African American life and culture. And the purpose was in part to explain who we were to African, to deal with African American identity, not only for African Americans, but for all the students on campus, so that they would understand the unique problems related to slavery and the past, Jim Crow, and in that particular era, and the lack of civil rights, segregation. We wanted to talk about the presence of African people in America, the extent to which they had contributed to the building of America. And all of that was important. The challenge at that time was, besides the black students, who was going to come and listen? We were blessed. People were interested in hearing Alex Haley. We got the faculty members involved and made sure that, especially those classes that were related to what the topic was. In the case of Alex Haley, it would have been the history department. In the case of Leon Damas, it would have been the poetry department. We made sure that those professors knew about the events, came and experienced those events, and were able to refer their students to those events. So we did have people coming. We did have people learning about the Black experience, and that was our role, both in terms of educating African Americans, but also in terms of educating the campus. In those days, there was a feeling that Black people didn't have anything to offer. It was like what Christians often say about Jesus, he was not appreciated in his hometown. Well, African Americans were not appreciated in our new homeland, and not even in our own homelands in some instances, because of colonialism and the tension between Africans and Afro-Americans at that time. Because of that history, because of the stereotypes, and because of the deliberate effort to suppress African-American identity and to suppress African-American feelings of self-worth. So we did not have self-worth in those days. We were not feeling confident about who we were. Now that has to do with the past, and we overcame that feeling of indifference in the past, and in part we did it by being scholarly ourselves, and by having the other scholars or other departments on campus recognizing that there was something for them to learn and for their students to learn from what we were doing in the center.
So with the thought that in the past our conversations developed in keeping our communities involved with our campuses and our activities on campus, that was part of a legacy and tradition that seems to still continue to this day. Presently, we're celebrating conversations of engagements in the community, and our cultural centers are rich in establishing those engagements. And one of the things we see directly with those engagements is that it allows us to recruit students to our campus. In addition to the African American students being recruited to the campus, you have the students from other cultural groups who are recruited to the campus, and those other cultural groups start to understand with the African American cultural centers the richness of diversity and multiculturalism. Where we're headed now, I would see a brighter future for African American cultural centers, in that this seems to be a time and season to recognize how much we've contributed to the university's missions, universities plural, missions plural, and understanding that there is a need for people to really understand African descendants, African Americans, Africans from the continent of Africa and the various countries on that continent, and Africans in the diaspora. And our celebration and understanding of those dynamics will make this world a better place, and in the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., even make this nation a better nation.
Okay, from the past. I graduated from Cheyney University. Cheyney is the oldest black college in existence. Now, let's take some facts into consideration. Black colleges are successful. They graduate about 20% of all African American people that get degrees. Why is that? If an environment is conducive for learning, a student will learn and learn well. What a Black Culture Center does is more of a modern day black college. What we do is we try to make that environment conducive, because when a student is at a majority university, they have a tendency to go into those classes and be the only person of color in those classrooms. They need to be reinforced many times. They need people that look like them, talk like them, walk like them, sing like them, dance like them, and have the same cultural values. That's what your culture center should be about. The values of helping a student facilitate their experience through a major university. Now, that's past. Present, you make sure that you address all the needs of those students. We tell our students on a constant basis to go out and see what the rest of the university has. And whatever they have, we will do it too. I often say that Ohio State University has bigger and better itis. We try to do things bigger and better than anybody else. We're the largest university in the entire country. We have roughly about 60 to 65,000 people on our campus. Matter of fact, at 12 o'clock, the Ohio State University is the 10th largest city in Ohio. That's how many people that come to that campus. Well, as a Black Culture Center, you have to share that concept. You have to have bigger and better itis. You have to make sure that you are relevant to the university. One of the stories I always tell is basically this. A student, I had a colleague to come and they visited me. And when they visited me, they said, "Larry, I'm impressed with your center." And I'm like, "I don't understand what you mean. You haven't even seen the center yet. How can you be impressed?" He said, "Because I asked a non-African American student where your center was." And he said, "Oh, the Hale?" And they're like, "Yes, the Hale Center." He said, "Oh, it's right down there." And he said, "When you go to many culture centers, it's hard to locate them, but when you can ask a non-person of color where your center is, it really shows that you're doing something." Yes, our concentration is to facilitate the experience of all students, but our concentration is African American students. You cannot concentrate on just one community. You want to make sure that you concentrate on all communities, but it's your specific community that you have to make sure that you nurture, you hold that culture value with, and when they graduate with an understanding of not only their degree, but who they are as a community and what they need to give back in regards to that community. Future, what does the future hold for Black Culture Centers? I think the culture centers now are more relevant than what they've ever been before. But in order to stay relevant, you have to stay on top of your game, and you have to make sure that you coincide with what the university is doing, and you give it an African American and an African perspective. I mean, I've always said this: you can't have a Black Culture Center without having the presence of Africa. If you have that presence of Africa, then you know that you're carrying your culture, not only as it goes back to the African American community, but it goes back to the African culture where civilization actually began. So within our culture center, we have mixes of our African and our African American culture, so when people come into that one, they feel very proud of their heritage.
I know on election night in 2008 and shortly after, we had a celebration. We had a cake. We had a cutout poster of President Obama. People came and took pictures, and they were engaged. Students were engaged even before that in terms of voter registration and things like that. Some of the programs that we've hosted this fall were related to making sure that people stayed engaged with the presidential election and stayed make sure folks were registered, make sure folks were aware of the issues. There have been debate watch parties and things like that on our campus. So I think all of those types of programs are important, and they help raise awareness of the importance of not only his election in 2008, but I think the current election and the current election cycle, and really just conversation surrounding the issues that have been addressed in the debates. And we brought in speakers that actually talk about where are we? Are we post-racial now that we've elected the president? Are we moving beyond some of the past challenges and things like that? We've had these conversations, I think, over the course of the past 4 years, and the reality is, I think it's a resounding no. We are not post-racial. We are not done with the challenges, I think, that this country faces as you deal with race. You see the emergence of the Tea Party and things like that. You see, continual challenges to rights of not only Black folks, but Hispanic folks as well. You see opposition to things like the DREAM Act. You see, just challenges all around the country to voting rights. You see so many challenges that show and remind folks that, hey, this country still has a problem with race, regardless of who
the president is. And I think, you know, it's really the role of cultural centers to ask these questions, to try to have some conversations surrounding these questions.
Today I heard from many of the students when we asked the broad question to the students participating in these centers, do you think that they're necessary? And many said yes, they're more necessary today than they've been in the past. In the fact that there's a perception that because we live in such an integrated society, this is a generation who for the first time has not experienced really aspects head-on of desegregation, discrimination, racism as previous generations. So many of them, you know, are not as aware of these issues. In fact, students bear witness today that oftentimes, unless it is very obvious, they don't know what these issues look like in person. But I charge the students today that if they would like to leave a particular legacy and they think that this should be a part of their legacy of preserving the centers, that they need to really form a new form of activism around this.